We are pleased to introduce Mr. Rohit Panchakshari. At the moment, he is in California working with one of the leading pharmaceutical company as a research scientist. Rohit's journey started way back around 17 years when he completed his 10th standard from a school in Nashik. Then he was our student during 2004-5 when he actually prepared for his undergrad education in America. He went to a prestigious college named Hampshire College for his bachelor's in cell and molecular biology, if I'm not wrong. And he completed his 4 years of bachelor's with the college in Boston. And then he got an internship in a prestigious Harvard University where he continued with his PhD. After that, he eventually completed his PhD successfully from Harvard, which is a real prestige and pride for any Indian to be completing his or her PhD from a prestigious Harvard University. And later, he started working with a pharmaceutical company where he is at the moment a very successful individual. And the important part is when he was in his 11th grade, that time he was pretty sure about all these achievements and all these goals, which we rarely see a student having a set goal during his 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. Rohit, we will start the interview by your undergrad studies. I know it's around 15 years back now. How was your experience at Hampshire College near Boston? Like, how was your experience for 4 years at Hampshire?
Well, the whole thought regarding coming to US started around 2002 when I was in ninth grade. And the reason I was actually really pumped about coming to US was because of an opportunity that came my way through the Rotary Cultural Exchange program. And I was seriously considering it, that I should apply, and because I play tabla, so that's considered in a good light for doing the Rotary Exchange. And one of my good friends had actually also done it, so I was inspired by it. I was keenly considering doing that, and I was very close to actually getting it done. However, during that time, the discussions I was having with my parents was that you'll go there, you'll enroll into a US-based school for a year, and then come back here again. You lose an academic year, because when you come back to India, that academic year that you spend in the United States is not counted as something that you have achieved towards your education back in India. So you would need to again repeat that, 10th grade or 11th grade, whatever. So since that couldn't happen, my parents were, brave enough and adventurous enough to offer that, why don't you go and study there? And that honestly excited me back then, that, if this is a possibility, why not? Why not consider it? And yeah, just while talking to a couple friends who had come here, incidentally, one other person who happens to be a good friend had come to United States for education. I was in touch with him, and then I met you, right? So yeah, that's how I got into this whole idea about coming to US and pursuing my education. And the key criteria for anyone coming from a very, sort of a middle class family and humble background that I came from, the key aspect is honestly in terms of how much scholarship or financial aid can you get. Because when you're coming for undergraduate degree, it's a 4-year affair, right? So that was the main criteria in terms of choosing colleges and applying to undergrad places that I did. So I remember while deciding where to apply, we kind of just went through a huge list of colleges, and I was very keen about going to a liberal arts school because I liked their way of education. So I was keen on applying for liberal arts schools. But then the flip side of applying to liberal arts schools is that they are also a little bit more expensive. So the way I had chosen my colleges back then, I think we applied to 9 or 10 schools, and out of those 9 or 10, I think 3 were liberal arts. Couple were universities which are state funded, and then couple were in Midwest, in the middle of America, where I knew that I had a really good chance of getting in. So those were my safety net. That if everything else fails, if I don't get a good enough financial package, from the college of my choice, this would be my fallback option. That this is it's achievable in terms of finance with the scholarship that they are able to provide. So yeah, I mean, based on these criterias, I applied to those 9 or 10, and I got into Hampshire, thankfully. And of all the colleges that I got into, Hampshire was the most generous one. So they offered me up to like 85% of scholarships and financial aid. And then the rest 15%, obviously my parents were kind enough and incredibly generous enough to take that upon them. And then there was also this work study which was granted, which is essentially you work 20 hours per week. That's the max, that's the cap that international students have. And then you basically save as much money as you can, and you can use it towards your living expense, or you can pay towards your tuition. So yeah, that's how it ended up being. My first criteria was money. Who's going to give me the most amount of money? And then second criteria, which is equally important but had to be second, was the sort of education that I was going to get. So yeah, that's how I ended up at Hampshire.
Okay. Okay, great. So you had an incredible experience at Hampshire for 4 years, right?
Right.
And then after this, you got into Harvard for an internship or a job kind of thing. So how you got into Harvard actually? Like what was the procedure of selection into Harvard?
Yeah, so the way honestly I got this opportunity was in 2007 when I was a second year student at Hampshire. And it was serendipity. And the person that made it happen for me is Dr. Richard Goldsby. He was now a retired professor, but he taught immunology at Amherst College. So in fall of 2006, when I entered my second year, I took his immunology course, which he taught at which at Amherst College, and ever since 10th grade, I really, really enjoyed biology, and especially immunology because it's just fascinating. So I really, really enjoyed that class, and I did well in that class because I was just having a great time. Towards the end of that course, he, being a professor at a really good college, he used to get all these advertisements from other colleges where they are seeking interns for applying to the summer internship program. And he was reached out by Sue Fallbeck, one of our program administrators, for soliciting students that, Harvard Immunology is starting a summer internship program in immunology. Um, do you have any students that you would recommend? And he said, Rohit, this is what I got in mail. And I think you would be a good candidate for this. And so basically his recommendation letter is what got me 2007 Harvard Immunology internship. So yeah, it was an accident. It was a very happy accident, and thankfully, I'm immensely grateful to Dr. Goldsby for making this happen for me. So that's how I got my first foot into Harvard, and I got into Dr. Judy Lieberman's lab back then, and I worked in her lab for 3 months. And in big labs, and particularly in any university, not just Harvard, is that these big labs have like multiple different postdocs. So postdocs are the guys who have finished their PhD and are in a transition mode before they go to either industry or another academic university to start their own lab. So when I joined Judy's lab, I was, given to work with Dipanjan Chaudhary, who was a postdoc back then in Judy's lab in 2007. So he trained me for 3 months, and I worked on a project with him, which got published. And I worked really, really, excitedly because I was learning to do research, and Dipanjan was an incredible teacher, teaching me everything in terms of cell culture, microscopy, molecular cloning, yeah. So I really enjoyed doing that. And that kind of built a relationship with Judy, that built a relationship with Dipanjan. And then towards the end of the internship, there's a poster session that all the interns get to present what they have done over the last 3 months in respective labs where they are placed. So while I was presenting the poster, the director of admissions for immunology PhD program stopped by, and I gave the spiel regarding what I've done, the research that I've done in Judy's lab working with Dipanjan, and she really liked it. That Rohit, you did a decent job presenting the poster and doing the work. Stay in touch. And next year in 2008, Dipanjan told me that, Rohit, you should apply to Harvard again internship program, and then you should come to my lab, because by then he had left Judy's lab and had established his own lab at Harvard at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. So in 2008, again, I was called upon to be in Dipanjan's lab. So I spent that summer there, 3 months again there. So again, being part of that atmosphere, networking in those, with the faculty over there, learning about what they are doing. Then during the whole span of the internship, there's a lot of courses that are taught by Harvard faculty. So you interact with them, you get to learn what their research is. So it's a very stimulating environment. So after 2008 internship, I graduated in 2009. And after graduating, Dipanjan had already told me in 2008 that, Rohit, once you graduate, if you want to work, please do work with me. So thankfully, he was really kind to offer me, a job opportunity after graduating. So I happily took that because I knew what the lab was doing. I was learning along the way. And it was, Dipanjan's, generosity that got me that employment. So after graduating, I worked in his lab at Dana-Farber for a year, from 2009 till 2010. And during that time, I applied for PhD programs because I knew that I wanted to do PhD in immunology. I really wanted to learn more, and that's something that, an unsolicited piece of advice is that only do PhD if you really are curious about the field and want to learn more. Don't commit to doing PhD if you're half-hearted about it or not convinced about doing it, because that requires a lot of grit, a lot of consistency in terms of efforts, and it can be tough, but it builds your character. It's all good, honestly. So yeah, so I was committed. So I had applied to multiple different colleges. I got admit everywhere, but then I chose, Harvard because of two reasons. Because I knew the people. There were other labs that I had my curiosity piqued about, particularly Dr. Fred Alt's lab, which I eventually chose to do my thesis in. And then the other reason was that because my brother was close by, he was again at Hampshire College, my younger brother. So given those reasons, I chose to be at Harvard. So yeah, that's how I ended up with my PhD program there.
Wow. So this is an incredible journey you had, like right from your bachelor's, like starting in the 2005 till 2009, and then a job in Harvard, and then starting the PhD in Harvard was really good.